boldinventorship.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Bold Inventor Show. I'm your host, JD Houvener, owner, founder, and patent attorney here at Bold Patents Law Firm. And you made it. This is a live stream. We're across LinkedIn and YouTube today. I'm a patent attorney, and I usually am accompanied with our trademark attorney, Matt Colseth. He's roughing it in Hawaii with his wife and family, so hopefully have him back next week. Today I've got an awesome guest, as you probably saw from the subject. We've got Angela Fairhurst with Jerry Gadgets, and she'll be on in just about 10 minutes or so. If you're watching this after the fact and you want to watch us live, we are actually live Wednesday afternoon, right at noon Pacific time. So 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock West Coast. So catch us next week. We're here every Wednesday. So let's get a couple of things out of the way. I want to make sure to offer up a disclaimer. While I'm an attorney, of course, there's no attorney-client privilege here because we're live. So please don't come on to our channel and ask anything confidential. There is an opportunity for you to book a consultation or even a free discovery call. And so I'm going to put that link in here in case anyone is interested. That's our weekly live link. If you click that thing, you're going to get a cup just like this. That's the Bold Patents mug for being a viewer. We've sent a bunch of these out. Most of them survive shipping, believe it or not. So click that link, book a free discovery call, and get a free mug on me. Here's my disclaimer, legal notice. I usually remember to put this in, and there it is. So again, please don't have any confidential questions. But if you have any high-level or hypothetical discussions you want to ask about our guest, please feel free to jump in. I'll take you to the top of the list. I've got 4 questions that came in over the week. I'm going to get to those quickly as I can. And I don't see anybody live on right now, but if anybody live wants to ask a question, go ahead and put it in there for the next 5 or 10 minutes. I'll try to get to your question before I move on to these preloaded ones. So let's do from our Reddit community. We had a question come in about software patents. I'll put that up here for us to look at. I'm looking to understand common gaps in invalidation searches for software patents. From your experience, where do these searches most often fail to uncover relevant prior art? Gosh, that's a sophisticated question. So let's start with defining what an invalidation search is. What this means is if you have a product on the market and you're worried about a patent that exists that someone else has, one thing you can do is try to invalidate it. So let's say you're worried about a patent holder coming after you, or maybe they've already sent you a cease and desist letter, and I bet that's what this is. You're now faced with the question of, do you fight this? And if you do you start with trying to invalidate their search? And one key way to do that with software is proving that it's an abstract idea. Pretty complicated. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. The second part of the question is, where do the searches fail to uncover relevant prior art? I found by using a third-party search team, they use both semantic language as well as Boolean language to uncover not just patent documents, but anything that's published. So those are the really hard things to get. Getting patent documents, while there is a ton, and of course you can look worldwide, it's the non-patent literature publications that examiners usually miss. And that's the stuff you want to try to find. If you can show to a judge that the patent that someone is asserting against you, if that subject matter was already disclosed, shown to the world, then you can prove that it wasn't new and that the examiners messed up. So that's the hard stuff to find. Typical searches, most third-party searchers are really good. AIs are really good at searching patent documents, patent data, but they're not all that great about looking at websites, harder to find publications, online non-patent literature. Okay, I was pretty long-winded there. I'm going to do a couple more, and then we'll get to our guest here. This is from Cora. That's a trademark question. I'm going to save that one for Matt. Oh my gosh, we have a lot of trademark questions. Here's an easy one. This is trademarks. I'm going to give it a shot. And then we're gonna go right to our interview because these are all trademark questions. Can anyone own the trademark of a famous music venue and the same name restaurant under two different business categories? It depends. So famous trademarks. Let's say, I mean, gosh, there's a lot of them. Starbucks, okay? Starbucks coffee. They're gonna, basically own anything related to coffee, caffeinated beverages, maybe even restaurants, right? Food-related products and services. They kind of get this additional bonus brand rights because it's so well known. If you try starting doing a Starbucks donuts, that's probably too close. People will probably think, oh, this is coming from the Starbucks that we know and love, came out of Seattle, right? But something on way outside of that, let's say furniture, Starbucks furniture, that's probably registrable, right? Starbucks law firm. It's still kind of borderline cases, but when a mark becomes famous, that's when it generally will get more than one category. But for the non-famous, right, the rest of us, the non-Starbucks businesses in the world, you're really only going to get one category. For bold patents, it's legal services. And so the word bold, used outside of legal services, we have no protection, no ability to go after you. So if this is a music venue and you're going for a restaurant, again, it's going to depend on that music venue itself. If it's like the Grand Ole Opry and you're trying to open up the Grand Ole Opry restaurant, that's going to be pretty similar. And so that's the big question with trademarks is a consumer going to be confused? Are they going to be wondering if the services or the products that you're selling are coming from a different source? And if the answer is yes or maybe, rebrand. Don't start out the wrong way and have to change later. Okay, that's all I got. I'm going to bring on our guest, Angela Fairhurst. Welcome to the Bold Inventor Show.
Thanks for having me, JD.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking time and sharing with us what you're up to. And I heard just before we went live, you actually are up to a number of different things. And one of them is Jerry Gadgets. And you did an excellent job. I didn't even tell you to put that circle R on there. So kudos to you. If Matt was here, he'd be really proud of you designating your trademark over Jerry Gadgets. So give us a little background about yourself and how you got started with Jerry Gadgets.
Well, it's funny because I'm a television producer by trade. That was my career. My entire career, I was in music variety television, nonfiction, docu-follow, game shows, talk shows, documentary, all TV related, entertainment. I'm born and raised in California. So here you go. I'm an LA native. So I guess Hollywood was right here. And
your lighting looks great. You look phenomenal. I love your background, everything. Yeah.
I went to UCLA. So actually fortunate. And I say a lot of everything is luck and timing. So I got into television because I sat on the airplane next to the producers of the Grammy Awards. I got into inventing just because there was white space. And this was prior to Jerry Gadgets even, and that I just kept on thinking, how come that hasn't been done yet? How come that hasn't been done yet? And really, a little bit of talking about it gets you from A to B. I mean, really, my origin story, I'm like, my kids are young. I'm in the park in Roxbury Park. It's a Beverly Hills park. And I'm telling my friend Taryn about a product I have an idea for that was for exercise.
Okay.
Product. And this gentleman, my kids are playing with his kids, says to me, well, do you need some help with that? I happen to be a toy inventor.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
What?
Be my patent attorney, the guy that made my prototypes. This person, just from talking about something, actually gave me my start in inventing, because a lot of people have ideas, but they never ever take them to market.
Yes. Oh, exactly. You're kind of describing something that's quite rare, where it's not just the idea person. And I hate to say this, but it's true. Ideas are a dime a dozen. It's who can follow through, who can actually implement and bring something about. That's rare. It's super rare. and you've got that special ability. Have you done it on your own, or has there been, you mentioned this individual, but in terms of your businesses, is it largely driven by you, or are there partners you found?
Well, I say I'm a pretty much a solopreneur. In the exercise products, I used to belong to, well, I still do, Equinox Gym. I mean, I'm branding that one.
Yep.
But there was a trainer that would teach all these classes that I really loved. And I asked him to give me the background on product development for the exercise product because he was an expert in the field. So that taught me that. And I actually did get a patent on that product. That was patent number 1.
Okay, patent number 1. And did it kind of lead to Jerry Gadgets? Is that kind of where you were going, or?
Really, it's so funny because I mean, you say yes and no, but the truth is that gave me a background in knowing how to create a patent, trademarks, and all that stuff. So I didn't bother to take it to market at the time. I'm gonna step back for a second. I did somehow get introduced from talking about it to Damon John, Shark Tank.
Yeah, I know that individual.
They did license it for a 1-year period, but they were specific. They wanted it in an infomercial, be honest.
Okay.
Exercise products don't really make very good infomercials because everything wants a magic wand to happen and instant results in an infomercial. In that 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or even a half hour, you want to see a transformation. Well, that transformation doesn't happen when you have to exercise. You have to work at it to get results. And the truth of the matter is that people like the quick result. Yes. You know, pain problem solved, but not having to do the work. So I left it aside, saying I'll get to it eventually, but it's also a very competitive marketplace. I have an adjunct exercise product as well that I also got a patent on. But what really happened is that my mom got dementia, and I was out to solve a problem. She was agitated, she was isolated, and I needed to calm and connect with her. Mm-hmm. It was really complicated.
Yeah, it's personal, real personal. Yeah. Oh, interesting. I mean, so tell us about that. And, what were some of the early solutions that you were able to find?
Well, truth is that what would happen was in 2014, my mom had already been home for 4 years, and she went into a care home community. And I was so afraid. It became not safe for her to be at home. In the world of dementia, it's a diminishing return. But so her fear and her language skills were leaving her. All of this stuff created these behaviors that are considered bad because she's agitated and because she would bite and kick or struggle to communicate. Can you imagine what it feels like to know you're losing your mind or your facilities and not being able to communicate? Oh my God, I can't. She's inside her body, just totally isolating herself further and further away. And that's what happens with a lot of people with cognitive decline, ADHD, autism, any sort of Parkinson's or ALS. They're in this body and even, their mind's working, but not. So she's in a care home community in 2014. And this was her second community. The first one was unsafe for her. And I didn't know what I'm going to expect. Some days she'd be in a better mood than others. Every day is a little bit different for somebody from dementia. But caregivers would tell me, oh my God, she's biting or she kicked. And I'm thinking, oh, she is going to get kicked out. What am I going to do? I don't have the means to have her 36 hours of care for her in 24 hours. And so this day was different. I go in and I see my mom actually touching shiny magazine paper and rolling it into her good hand. This is her right hand. Her left hand is clenched. It's a Lewy body dementia, it's Parkinson's related, specifically a complicated dementia. I think Alzheimer's may be a little more predictable, but frontal lobal and Lewy body are kind of complicated. And when I saw that, and she's calm, I'm like, the light bulb goes off. What can I bring to her to keep this calming thing happening? And how can I connect with her? Because she's in space at this point.
Okay, got it. Interesting.
So that's when I started to bring toys from the children's department. And what I was finding with things that were too childish, not respectful enough,
Okay.
too complicated. Things go into the mouth, so they're toxic when mouth, and they're definitely not washable. So things are gross and disgusting. And so that's when I came across a silicone pot holder in my own kitchen.
Huh.
And I cut it down, a square one. I cut it down to about this size because I'm thinking, what material is safe? Now, I wouldn't recommend doing that with a serrated edge, but I brought it as a sample to my mom, and she was patting it against her leg like this.
Huh.
And she starts to calm down, and she loves the sound, crunch like a taco. And I'm going to show you
Right.
the first
Oh my goodness. Interesting. Super tactile. Like
right?
really, just very.
She calms. And then I throw it back and forth to her like a Frisbee. And that was it. Everything changed. She's like delighted. She's laughing. The first time in 4 years that I found that connection.
Oh my gosh. That's so cool.
Sales guy is in the room with me at that time because it's a public room. And he was like, oh my God, this is working. So then I was like, okay, I'm on a mission. I'm going to come up with stuff that's going to take away that clenched hand, that's going to keep this connection thing going, and that's going to keep her calm.
Wow.
And I didn't know how good it was going to turn out. But so we started ideating on Saturdays, and I'm like, oh my God. And I thought, I was so cerebral about it at the time. Like, what are we going to name this? And I thought, right? And I'm like, oh, well, the average life expectancy is 1,000 months. I'll call it 1,000 months. But they were Jerry gadgets. They were geriatric toys, basically. But I don't really call them toys because they're very high end. I call them tools, manipulatives, or even a kid.
Yeah.
But that's where this started to happen. I brought one of those toys that was a bucket that had the shapes. And honestly, the dopamine that was created, like, oh, the curiosity was great. The bucket idea came around, but the material didn't happen until that beautiful moment of silicone. But all of these things that I created were dishwasher safe, mouth safe, shower and bath safe, non-toxic materials, completely sense of ease. And it started to work so well. So the fidget bucket has 5 manipulatives of different textures, some of them very familiar. A popper, we know what they're super high quality though. And so this one is a triangle for exercising the hands and arms. And I have a tugger. All this stuff is made one person, 2 people. It was about being able to engage with them.
Yes.
Quick chain, which this is made super durable where it doesn't pull apart.
Yeah, not a choking hazard or anything.
Exactly. No small parts. And of course, we've seen eggs. So I'm trying to exercise that hand and then, get that stuff made. And then I just started to take things that I liked that worked. And these shapes are Tetris inspired. I was like,
so cool.
But here's silicone, right? Here's something that's not plastic.
You actually created an alternate Lego, kind of an assembly,
It
right?
is.
Okay.
And so there's a textured side and a smooth side. So much fun because you can build with somebody and create any sort of structure in any which way. And if they're further along, they're just going to lay it down straight. But, we can stack this. It just endless possibilities. So it was about that failure free and creating that sense of possibility. So I and then the last one I have currently in the marketplace are flowers. And of course, everybody loves flowers. And they're just with leaves, but everything, wash it. No wire inside. But I reinforce the vase because people with cognitive decline don't think the way we do, and you want to celebrate any kind of thinking. So the vase is reinforced so that this can go any which way, right? And that art. My mom was a painter.
Yeah.
So this is creative, right?
So fun. You get to build. It's physical. It's connective. More than one person can do it.
And it was magical how it worked. So when it was working this well, I'm like, okay, I have to go to market with this because it made such a difference. Because I didn't have to cry. Every time I visited my mom prior to this, I would leave and cry. I was so distraught because it's so hard to grieve somebody that's alive. The person that you once knew is totally different. But
you just want that connection, like you said, that smile that just means the world to both people, to have that connection.
Yeah, and that
creating that vehicle for it.
So then I reached out to my patent attorney who had done the patents. And honestly, it takes the trust of people like you that really know what they're doing. And he was somebody that I could always, he listened, he asked. I learned how to do market research, because it saved a lot of time and money if you do your own market research, especially now. In 2014, we didn't have ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these beautiful things. It's so much easier. But does what you're thinking of exist? How can we make something, and for me, the best things are simply innovative. So how can we solve a problem in the most simple way? I think when we get overly complicated, it becomes really difficult. I mean, look at the brilliance of the paperclip and the Post-it note.
Right.
Oh my God. So it's about, so mine is a manipulative sensory kit.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. I did have your website pulled up, and maybe you could show us kind of what you've been working on in these kits. I saw these Safe Touch kit. You've got a fidget one, a shapes bucket, and a flower bucket.
Yeah.
How have these been doing? And I guess what was your thought process around different types of manipulatives?
Well, I wanted to create things that were engageable, that did create that connection, because a lot of the products that are out there might be in the elder care market anyway, in dementia toys. There are aprons with fidget things on them. There are spinners and all these other things, a stuffed animal or a mechanical something or other, but none of them are for two people. None of them have that multi-sensory component to them. That is, it's really about that engagement and that connection, because we know in today's environment, and COVID really told us, hey, isolation makes people lose their abilities. I think you might actually be on a Shopify site versus the actual website, but that's okay.
Yeah, I just over there. There we go.
Yeah, but it's great. I mean, so now, it was about coming up with, and the patent is written so that there are a lot of future ideations of different kinds of kits that I have put together that all have that sort of ability to engage with somebody. So calming and connecting and really engaging with somebody in that sensory way. And I didn't know the science, but silicone is the closest material to human skin. When I talked about the dopamine, about opening, we're very familiar with dopamine. We all go for it. We like that anticipation of something. Yeah. But what I didn't know is that when you engage with somebody, those hug and love chemicals of serotonin and oxytocin actually stay with them for a couple of days. So that's like an added benefit of why this works so well. And I didn't know. I just felt it intuitively.
Wow. Yeah, I got it. You're mixing all those love drugs, right? You got the good stuff, the dopamine for gamification, but then like you said, that really stay with you, oxytocin. Let's talk about the patent itself. I mean, is it just one patent filing or one patent that got granted? And how did you go about protecting all these different devices?
Well, it is the manipulation kit.
Okay, right? So it's a kit.
Sensory kit. They are kitted. I'm sure you can't patent one item like this. It would be near impossible. So it really is about the system.
Yeah.
It is, like you said, there are a lot of different iterations of it in the future. So I have future possibilities. Mm-hmm. So of all of the things that I had ideated at that point, we got granted the patent about 2 years ago now, almost. Right. It was, like I said, I approached my patent attorney probably 8 years earlier. It takes time.
It does take a while. Yeah. Do you have the patent number handy? I apologize. I was looking for it.
Oh, God. Yes. Okay, I'm going to have to go off screen if I do it. Wait, hang on. I can pull it up while I'm talking to you. You want to look at it?
Yeah, we can pull it up if you look at it. I mean,
you might as well.
And you're right. Oftentimes you have to combine certain elements, like you said, a system, in order to get that claim allowed. But it's good to hear you're sort of set up for future iterations, future versions of the invention.
And currently, I have a continued patent. Let me give me your patent number.
Sure.
Notice of recording patent. How cool! It's so cool to get the official notice.
Yes.
Let me see if it's written on here what the patent number is. Yeah. Oh, that's the application number, not the actual patent.
Okay. Got it.
I don't want to go into my drawer and pull it though. I think maybe I can. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds.
All right. All right. If there's any questions for myself or for Angela, this is a good time to ask them. I see a couple live viewers out there. We can take some questions, and then we've got our next guest coming on in about 5 minutes.
Oh no, Sue. Okay. Well, anyway, these are.
Hey, look at that! Nice.
These are my patents. I have a number of trademarks, so we can talk about those too. But
Sure.
Yeah. How fun is this? But anyway, sorry, JD. The patent is.
I know you sent it to me too. I should have.
Yeah. This is the third one. Of course, out of all three, the one I have to open is last. I'm sorry about that.
I think I do have it.
986-742-B2.
All right, let's pull that one up. Yeah, that is pretty new. Over 10 million, so it's very recent.
Yeah.
Here it is.
I'll share. The ones are let's see, 8 million or something. Now it's 7 million. Yeah.
I'll share a screen here. So I'll show this tab. So this is issued back in 2024, not too long ago at all, very recently. And you've got 20 years after this, so until 2044. And some of the drawings here, like you said, this is covering this flower system.
Yeah, and they all look a little different. I mean, the bucket looks the same pretty much.
Right.
But then there are a bunch of iterations in there. Those are my little figures. They're funny drawings. Flowers just ended up being a tulip, but that was because they were symbolic. They rise with the sun, and it was easier to manufacture the tulip than it was the flowers.
Well, and what's great, and this is a utility patent, which you're not locked into one specific design with a utility,
right?
What you really own is the words on the written claim, and it looks like a nice, tidy paragraph. You have an object system, manipulation system comprising a storage device, which is very generic. It could take any shape.
Yes, it can.
And a plurality of objects help to basically put in bendable flowers, vase, a few different things, different colors, and so long as they're different one or more apertures, then you're gonna have coverage. So really, this system could look a lot of different ways, and just like you've done your website, you've packaged and oriented these different designs. So a nice broad patent. Kudos to you on that.
Thank you.
System, and to your patent attorney.
Yeah, I've known him a long time. Honestly, I met him if it weren't for that day in the park. But it does. I think that you're doing the right thing by having a show like this. You earn trust. You show your knowledge, and it's a really great thing. I think that has a lot of value.
Absolutely. A lot of people wonder this, and this is sort of a tougher question: is it worth it to get patents? And I always ask this, right? You've invested, I'm sure it's not free, and to acquire the time invested to apply for them is relatively new, but have you recouped the costs? Have you got enough revenue to say, oh yeah, or has the impact been high, good enough?
Not yet. Not yet, because I bought the products to go to market.
Yeah.
But I have the traction. I have international distributors now. I have Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and that's a growing market. I have Japan, a marketing company interested in Jerry gadgets. I know that I'm onto something because of the feedback and the response, and I think that that's where that market research is really important. That listening to your customer and knowing who that person is going to be is really important when you're creating something. Some of them aren't worth it. You can't be so in love with your idea that you can't do it. And I've had, This is the number of, I've gotten rid of a bunch of ideas. I've come up with something, and then you do that market research and you realize, no, you're not really going to make money from that. And not bother. So you do have to weigh that expense, but then you do have that provisional patent, that period of time to figure it out. So you can spend a little money and take that year. Is it a year or is it 18 months?
1 year, 1 year. Yeah.
Got your date in there. And then you can find out whether you really want to invest in the future by doing all that market research and maybe doing prototypes or whatever. And they can be super, super rough. I mean, I've done that. But then it's really, yeah. And I wouldn't be where I was if it weren't for the ability to network. And I know luck and timing has a lot to do with where you are at the right place, but you make that own luck by talking about stuff, by networking, by getting out there and not silencing yourself. Right. So I think we're not born inventors. We become them by sharing what we do and actually having that belief, getting out of our own way that we can do this. But when you do strike that nerve, which I think that Jerry Gadgets does, and you fix that pain point, I mean, like you see it magically work to do something like that, then I think it's worth it, and it will be, and the payoff will be, and the response is there. So I feel like I'm going to get there from here, but at least I maintain that confidence. I can't say I have it every single day.
Yeah.
But it pushes me forward.
That's fantastic. Those were wonderful gems for really any inventor that needs to kind of keep that fire going. Like you said, challenge yourself, make sure you're not in unreasonable expectations, make sure you're not, like you said, getting in your own way. I think that's really valuable. If I've got inventors that wanted to follow up with you personally, are you open to me sharing your email address?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll do that here. I'll say feel free to reach out to Angela here. And I've got Angela at jerry-gadgets.com. Is that right? The dash.
Yep. I'm happy to, look at people. If it weren't for other people advising me, I wouldn't know what I know today. I still don't know what I don't know. It takes like you, it takes your, Matt, in the trademark world, to know what you can trademark or not. You had a couple of good questions. I mean, somebody came to me with another idea in the healthcare space called Babbel. And I go, well, it's spelled L-E instead of E-L or whatever. And I'm like, but they're going to chase you. So I thought your answer to Starbucks or Grand Ole Opry was brilliant, because I said, well, I would think of, before you launch, renaming it to something that's not going to be so brand attached. But if it's lesser known, then it's like you said. I was like, yeah, I'm nodding my head when you said.
Good. Made sense to you. Thank you so much for your time, Angela. We're going to have you backstage, and I will love to have you back sort of in maybe a couple years and get hopefully some wonderful news. Sounds like you're lining up some distributors, not just in the US, but overseas. Very exciting. Fun. And I'd love to hear your journey. Thank you for sharing that story with us.
Thanks for having me, Jade.
You're welcome. All right. Well, we've got our next guest, Frank Lazaro. Frank, welcome to the Bold Inventor Show.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Just talking about inventions, helping people with their projects. I was just talking. It looks like you were backstage. Were you able to hear the interview with Angela?
Yeah, I caught the last about 10 minutes, which was good. It's interesting, her patent was more recently, and I was kind of looking back at my patent. I think the first one I filed was in 2002.
Okay, you got some history there. Okay, how many have you done total?
Total of two.
Okay,
and it's an interesting journey. It's it's kind of fascinating to kind of hear individuals that kind of come up with their own products. Angela's, where my both patents were actually kind of done when I was working for a large corporation. So, my process and access to resources were a lot different in terms of, how things go through that. And you learn a lot too, right? There's being an inventor is way different than being the assignee.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Right. So when you think about that, like, you're the inventor, but someone else is making the money. it kind of makes it it makes it a little, learning experience. But you kind of work through it though. Which is
Well, maybe we could have you share a little bit about that. I mean, that's something we don't actually talk too much about is intrapreneurship, right? When you're inside a company innovating, maybe not getting the big, huge, profit or upside on inventing, but hey, maybe you get a few perks and a fun plaque on the wall from corporate. But do you mind sharing a little story about that?
Yeah. So so at the time I was working for the phone company, and you probably know this, like with most phone company, Bell South at the time, which was one of the Bell operating companies, and they've kind of merged back together. But they're very prolific in terms of the patents that they file, like literally hundreds per year. They have on-staff patent attorneys. You come up with an idea, you submit it. It kind of works through a very curated process.
Okay.
And employees do benefit from it, right? You get a bonus for filing the patent. You get a bonus for the patent being issued.
Nice. Okay.
And they give you a plaque, and they give you a couple of, so you get a lot of recognition around that. But if you do come up with something that's very innovative and it's actually, making money, obviously the company benefits from it. And you kind of learn that process between the assignee is the most important part of the of the patent, mainly because they own it, versus the inventor, which is interesting. Now, the upside to that is that I had access to, any number of attorneys, with them writing the application for us and, interviewing me and getting my notes and all of that stuff. So having access to those resources was, made the process very, very simple, right? No out-of-pocket money, no working with an independent attorney. Everything was just kind of provided to me, which kind of makes a very unique situation. But, there's also unique outcomes.
Yeah. And, I know you're keeping things somewhat generic just to make sure we're not spending the whole interview on that. But were you able to benefit from the company actually building out and testing your product, kind of how Angela was talking about, hey, you do a filing, test it, refine it, make it solid, then come back into the non-provisional and solidify those claims and alignment?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, so what you find is like with these big companies, sometimes they file those patents more for defending. Right, they're doing it to prevent
so their competitors can't get exclusivity. Okay, sure.
So one of our patents actually that we came up with, and again, these are kind of dated in the sense that newer technologies have kind of made them obsolete in a lot of ways. So if you go back to the early 2000s, the way mobile service plans worked is you bought minutes. I got 400 minutes. I got 800 minutes. And so typically if you would go over your allotment, what would happen is that you would pay an overage fee, right? 50 cents a minute or something, and you can have an astronomical bill. So we came up with this idea that if you get close to your threshold, that from a marketing perspective, we can sell you a bucket of minutes before you go over, right? To kind of give you to your next billing cycle. So you're not paying 50 cents a minute, you're paying 25 cents a minute. So it's almost like a 50% discount, but I'm able to kind of market it to that. And it was all of what we call like overdraft protect. Think of the concept of a bank account. So it was overdraft protection for your wireless plan.
That's cool. Nice.
Right. And so, so it was a really cool idea, and it worked well for people that were on both postpaid accounts or prepaid accounts, et cetera. They never really implemented it, but they did go after one of their competitors who was trying to do the same thing and pretty much blocked competition from that perspective, right? Because, they're trying to protect market share or whatever it was at the time. But it was fascinating that was the patent in itself. So, and the interesting thing was I was working in the marketing department, and that's how we came up with the idea. It's like we get feedback from our customers that they don't like the overage fees. How could we sell them a product to kind of make a little bit more money, give them the benefit of the discount? Yeah. And someone's like, we need to come up with like overdraft protection. I'm like, that is genius. Let's map this thing out.
Nice, Frank. Cool.
And, yeah.
Right. Well, good.
And so that was neat. And then the second patent basically was killed by the smartphone. So the idea was that, having access to all new equipment all the time, we would switch phones. Like, the manufacturers would come in, and I would use a Nokia, and then I use a Motorola, and we'd go back and forth. Back in the day, there was no easy way to migrate your contact information from your phone to another phone. It's almost kind of like you had to just kind of like retype it back in. And it was very cumbersome.
Sure.
So we came up with this idea to be able to take any contact or series of contacts and using the wireless network. When we say wireless network, what we're really talking about is kind of like more the GSM network, not like more the data network that you see today. So basically using what we would call it the communications platform of this. And the interesting thing about that is do you know why text messages are limited to 150 characters?
No.
Yes. So your phone is constantly going to the cell tower to say, I am here. I am here. So that when a phone call comes in, it knows where you are and the phone call gets routed to your phone. There is a blank space at the end of that call that is exactly 150 characters. And some genius at the phone company said, hey, if we put ASCII messages or text in there, we can actually use that as the carrier to send the message along. So the whole concept of text messages was we have extra space in in the data that we're sending. Let's just put the text message there, send it up. And then when it goes to talk to your phone, it delivers the text message. We came up with a way to take your contact information and put it into that same bucket so that it can then come back down to your phone. So you could wirelessly move contact information from phone to phone without having to do something. And so it was very fascinating. And there was an IVR, so an integrated voice system you could use that was part of that. And then the iPhone and smartphones came out, and now they're using the data network. So think of LTE, 5G. That's basically just like wireless internet, basically made that obsolete because I can just use a regular data packet to send it up versus actually using a telephone.
Right.
So it kind of got dismissed in a way. But again, we were literally at lunch thinking that, man, this is such a pain to move my contacts every time I switch phones, and then you forget to save it to your SIM and you got to move. It was very complicated. Now it's just like, everything syncs on your phone. The smartphone is actually kind of smart in some ways.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was very fascinating, but that whole process and going through that process of kind of ideating on that and then really figuring out can it be unique enough? And surprisingly enough, not a lot of people were thinking of it in the way that we were.
Okay. Very cool. Tell me about it a little bit. We'll take a few more minutes and then we'll let you introduce your consulting business. I want to get to that too. Tell me about the in-house counsel or lawyers. How did you interface, if at all, with any lawyers at the company or the outside law firms?
Yeah, so we did have in-house counsel, and it was interesting. Is you would submit your there was a form or something that you would fill out, right? You just go into the Word, whatever, and basically explain the idea. And then randomly, I get a meeting notice for a full day, and and there would be 2 or 3 attorneys sitting there. Maybe it's an attorney and some paralegals or something. And they would just sit there and ask you questions. Okay, we saw what you wrote. Draw on the board what you think. How do you think this is going to work? And so you basically, and it kind of felt like you're being interrogated, but it was really them kind of trying to nuance, what exactly do you mean by that? That language is too broad. When you say tower, what does tower So there was this you kind of map out what you thought you were talking about. And then they go into each of the components to sit there and say, okay, are you saying this? Does this and they kind of regurgitate things back to you, but you pretty much spend the whole day with a group of people in a conference room, just literally just getting them to ask you questions to kind of talk it out so they can write the application.
That's great. Got it. Well, that seems like a very thorough approach. Invention, disclosure, and they're sort of doing what we do a lot in our kickoff calls, where we're extracting information and expounding upon what you've created to have a nice broad enabled application.
And then I think from there they go do their research and they'll file a contingent application to get to hold our place, right? Because I think we filed the first one in 2002, and I think at the time this
provisional application.
Provisional application to hold our spot in place, and then I think the final approval didn't come until almost 2006. It was almost about 5 years before back then. So, and then the other one actually moved a little bit faster. We filed that one in 2006, and I think that was issued in 2008. So the second one moved a little bit faster than the first one.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing your experience there. That's really insightful. We don't really talk about that nearly enough, I don't think.
You got to be very careful though. If you are working for an organization, you are signing documents away about intellectual property. So anything invented at, a corporation tends to be the property of that corporation. And, we were just coming up with ideas. We weren't thinking about like who's owning the patent and all that other stuff. But, if you are an inventor, but you are working for someone, just be mindful of kind of where and what equipment and how you're coming up with that idea, because someone can claim ownership of your idea just simply because you work there.
Yes, that's definitely one of our intake questions is, hey, is this invention related to your job?
Mm-hmm.
Are you using company equipment and time? And let's take a time out before we take your money. You may need to know whether this is going to be owned by you or your employer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of our threshold questions, and it's good for you to point that out.
Yeah.
Let's take 10 minutes here. I'm trying to go definitely as much detail as we can about you and AI consulting that you're doing. Frank Lazaro Consulting Company. Tell us how that got started. What inspired you to get into consulting?
Yeah. So, again, very selfishly in some ways, right? So if you go back to, even the patents back when I was working for the phone company, always kind of geared towards innovation and technology, and really kind of figuring out ways to kind of solve problems in a lot of ways for not only individuals, but for companies. So I was working for a small firm here in Atlanta, mostly civil engineering. They were doing some stuff. I was kind of managing the marketing and sales department. And what I found is that, typically in these types of firms, you don't have a lot of sales, marketing, administrative help. So I was like, well, how do we do more? I'm not going to get 20 people to help us do this work. So I started leaning into artificial intelligence really, really early on, before ChatGPT was like kind of really like mainstream. It was still kind of like the fringe. You had to like sign up and then you got invited. But we were doing it early on. And then I realized I'm like, there's got to be other firms, regardless of the industry or sector or whatever it is, that would be interested in doing this. So I kind of created a presentation and started submitting it to, associations for speaking opportunities. Kind of got onto the speaking circuit, did that. And, you'll be surprised once you get on stage, people are like, oh, do you do consulting? Like you seem like you know what you're talking about. Can you come and help us? Okay. And so I ended up leaving that firm and just kind of went out on my own and just started helping firms kind of navigate this whole concept of what we were thinking at the time, generative AI, which at the time it was really just ChatGPT. Then Copilot and Grok and Claude, all of those kind of came a little bit later. But it was really around that because I think everyone was I hit it at the right time because I think there was enough interest, enough marketing, enough news about it. And a lot of people were like, well, how do I do that? And so part of my philosophy behind that is like focus on industries that are kind of more of like professional services, because think about yourself, right? You bill by the hour, right? If you could do
we should do flat fees,
or flat fee, but other attorneys could bill by the hour, right?
Yep.
But if you sit there and say, hey, or even flat fee works as well. If it takes you 10 hours to do something and you're charging $1,000, right? Okay, you know what your profit is. But if you could do that same work, charge $1,000 in 5 hours, right? You're now more profitable. So focusing on the professional service industry. So think about architects, engineers, construction companies, attorneys, accountants, any other basically companies that kind of either bill by the hour or those kinds of flat fee, how do they can kind of benefit from that? And so I just kind of rolled into that concept of saying, I'm innovative. I know the technology. How can I help other people do that? And they kind of just, I went from speaking like, half a dozen or so times the first year to the peak, I think in 2024, I both virtually and in person, almost 58 times, thousands of professionals throughout the year. I kind of scaled back a little bit last year because I'm like, those organizations a little bit better to speak for than others, and then kind of coupling that with a bunch of consulting to help people kind of implement those things. So it's really just kind of taking my experience with the technology and then understanding businesses to kind of make people a little bit more efficient, which then ended up turning to me writing a book about it, right? So this whole book of writing, I kind of broke it down into, very simple math, right? It's all about finding 12 minutes of efficiency. So if you could use AI to find 12 minutes per day, you can find 1 hour per week. Who doesn't want to put 40 hours of work in a 39-hour work day or work week, right? So it's that whole concept of continue to incorporate this thing in what you're doing, and you'll continue to find and magically create time. And when your time is money, so to speak, right? Because professional services is all about time and hours. The more hours you could do, the more you could build, so you can be more profitable, you can be more efficient around it.
Yeah, got it. So I guess this book, so when did that get published?
And that got published at the beginning of last summer. So it's been out for about maybe 8 months.
Got it. Yeah, where can we find it? I'll give you a little
Amazon.com. Yes.
Okay. And it's the 12 minute finding 12 minutes.
Finding 12 minutes. Yes.
Okay.
Using generative AI. Yeah. So finding 12 minutes on Amazon. It's easy. And it's, talk about being an entrepreneur. Like I self-published that, right? That's, kind of went through the whole process of, writing the book, actually used ChatGPT as my editor, right? So I'd write a chapter and I would send it and say, hey, act as my editor. Does this make sense? Does it flow? Give me suggestions to improve the content. So I kind of used it because I was looking for an external editor, and they're quite expensive.
Sure.
And, if you're gonna think about doing that, right? You can use it. So not using it to write the book, but to use it to actually just like, I wrote this, help me improve it, or do something along those lines. I think that's is a great use of using that technology as well.
It's fantastic. Oh, great. Well, congrats on the book release. And I imagine you're sort of using a lot of your, knowledge gained and doing consulting work and speaking. I'm sharing your website here. What's sort of next for you? You said you kind of took a little break, if you will, last year, or sort of a foot off the gas, if you will. Yeah. But so what's on the horizon?
I think it's more of doing what I'm doing now, but just kind of focused, a little bit more focused on not necessarily speaking, but kind of leaning more into helping organizations from an education perspective, right? Going in and, it's funny.
Organizations, would you say? Sorry to interrupt you, but what type? Is there a category or type or industry that you love?
Yes. So right now, still focused on the professional services. So companies that tend to do the bill by hour or the flat fee. So think of, your consultants, your engineers, your architects. Those tend to be, honestly, they tend to be the ones that need the most help as well. They also tend to have very small marketing departments. So the technology is ripe to kind of help them do those things, right? Most of those organizations you think about, whether it's a law firm or an engineering firm, they're putting all their resources into the professionals, not necessarily into the back office or the administrative. So, they may have 20 project managers and one marketer, right? Or they may have, 2 marketers, so one of those things. So how do you get those 2 people to operate at a higher level so that they can continue to, fill their pipelines and do the things from a business development perspective?
Love it.
Maybe
you and I should chat after our this podcast. I mean, there's obviously opportunity because you're looking at the marketer at our firm, and there's.
But you're splitting your time, right? So that's the problem with a lot of these firms is that they get under this concept that they can do one person can do more than one job. Like I'm the attorney, but I'm also the marketer and I'm also the salesperson. Oh, by the way, I'm also the boss. So I'm also kind of overseeing accounting and I'm also doing this. And then you realize that you have 5 jobs.
Yeah.
Right. But if you could use AI to kind of help you write HR policies, and you could use AI to help you do some of this other administrative stuff, it'll free your time up to do some more of the things that are kind of driving, your brand recognition or revenue opportunities or whatever it may be. Right.
Fantastic. Cool.
So one of the things that I leaned into last year, and then I'm kind of pulling it forward to this year, is most firms go through some form of strategic planning where they kind of meet at the end of the year to kind of talk about the state of the business and where the business is going in the next year. Yep. And sometimes they look a little further out, 3 years, 5 years. I'm focused on doing strategic planning primarily just for innovation. Right. And because right now it's kind of decoupled because they say no, our business is our business. The way we introduce technology, we'll kind of do that separately. I see it differently. I see it that they're integrated, right? When you're introducing innovation in technology, artificial intelligence, that should improve your revenue, your pipelines, and all this other stuff. So I've been helping firms kind of navigate that to where we talk about strategic priorities, where and how technology and innovation gets integrated into their firm, and then create measurable impacts. Think about goals, signals, and metrics, right? What are your key KPIs to make sure that you're successful?
Yeah. I think a lot of, I'll be honest. We're still on our mind. Hey, this is gonna, oh my gosh, our value is being diminished in some way. We're sort of, but I think there's ways to lean into the technology, and find ways to be more efficient, like you mentioned, which not only increases our margins, but could actually reduce the cost to the customer and decrease friction. But it's going to mean change. It's going to mean evolving that how you do business and getting.
Yeah, architects are really afraid of it. Like they're very hesitant because they feel like their job's going to be taken. And that could be said for a variety of sectors and industries. The way I look at this is that this is a tool, right, to do your job, right? LexisNexis didn't eliminate the attorney. It just makes research for you a lot easier, right? Yeah. AI is the same exact way. If I gave you AutoCAD, JD, I can't turn around and call you an architect, right? Just because you have the tool doesn't mean. So the professional is always going to be part of this process. Now you start thinking about tying it back to this show, right? How does that now start playing an impact on innovation, right? What is patentable if you're using an AI tool for coding? And like you hear these things like vibe coding and this coding and that coding, right? So now it's just like I can innovate and create applications and tools at such a rapid pace. But at some point it's like, well, it's common tools. It's this, it's that. Like you start, I think some of this the patenting of products and processes are going to get a little bit more complex because now it's like you're using a tool to do that, and who owns ownership? And then there's the patent office came, can you copyright material works created by an AI? There's a lot of unknowns on how this plays out over the next several years.
Yeah. We're still, this is still fairly new, but we have lots of occasions where inventors are candidly co-inventing with AI and certainly embellishing new embodiments and versions using it. But our core tenets are, hey, it must be a human inventor. We're not going to be able to cite any AI invention. And I think maybe your follow-on question with regard to, tools they're using, whether they do or don't have permission to be using those, that's a side issue with respect to copyright and permissions and licensing. Right. But the invention, the inventor must have conceived the core. Yeah. And that's what they're still required to sign an oath stating that they are the inventor. We rely on that. But at some point, there's going to be less gray. Hopefully, the patent office will give us some direction on what to do with this technology that we can really just point in any direction and it will invent. It will you point to a white space and it can actually conceive of how to fill that. And it's going to be more about who's got the energy and the fire and the passion. What human wants to make that change happen? Right. That's really I think where we're headed.
Yeah, and I think so. But it's interesting though. You kind of pointed out, like I think there's a little bit of unknown, but the complexity comes in because these tools have gotten so powerful of late, particularly on the computer programming side. You see, the ability to kind of create an application and have no programming skills at all, right? It's just kind of prompting the AI, say, "I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that."
Amazing.
And then voila, you have an application. It's like, did you invent that, or did you just explain to it? Like it's almost.
Yeah. I remember it's not that long ago, maybe 10 years ago. I was talking with my buddies, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've got my kids learning code." I'm like, interesting, and that's almost irrelevant, whether you know how to code or not. But no, there's probably still going to be some value to have.
I got my son one of my sons when he was like maybe 8 years old. I got him a Python for Kids. Right. And, he's reading a book and like an hour later, he's up there programming like a little game. And it was fascinating. He ended up going to school to be a chemical engineer. But what you find is that these engineering programs now are forcing the students to actually take at least one coding class as they work through their degree. That it's like, I'm a chemical engineer. Why do I need to do a computer science class? But you're finding now is that a lot of these programming skills are kind of built into almost all these technical industries now. Yeah. So it is kind of fascinating how you see that. And so that was 4 years ago when he was a freshman, but now 4 years later, it's like, I could do the vibe coding. I just get on, one of the coding tools like Claude Code or Replit or Lovable and bang away and create an application. I don't, I grew up, my undergrad's in political science.
Frank, at the top of the hour, thank you for sharing your awesome history in basically you've taken us back 10, 15 years ago, the telecommunications industry, and then recently the AI revolution, and your new book. Congrats on that.
Appreciate it.
We'll wrap up our show. Thank you again for being on, Frank. And obviously we had our other guest as well. She was backstage, Angela Fairhurst. For all those out there that missed us live, want to catch us, we're here every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Pacific time. And we'll see you next week on the Bold Inventor Show. Go big, go bold.
Go big, go bold at boldip.com.